Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at the 2020 Maine Senate prediction between incumbent Republican Susan Collins and Democrat Sara Gideon. Without further ado, let's get into the data looking at the RCP Real Clear Politics polling average. As things stand right now, Sara Gideon holds a 2.5 point advantage over Susan Collins, 44.5% in her column to Susan Collins is 42% in the RCP polling average. Now, as for the latest poll conducted on July 6th, 2020, Sara Gideon had a 4-point advantage over Susan Collins, 46% in her favor to Susan Collins is 42%. Now, as for the JHK forecast, they predict that Sara Gideon will win in the state of Maine in their Senate race with 49% to Susan Collins is 48.2%. A margin of just 0.8 points over Susan Collins. That is the projection in the JHK forecast, extremely close there. Now, as for the Our Progress forecast, they predict that Sara Gideon will hold 50.5% of the vote to Susan Collins is 47.1%. A margin of 3.4 points, a much larger margin of victory than the JHK forecast had for Sara Gideon. Now, as for the data consensus, so all of the data combined to produce an average, Sara Gideon has a 2.7 point advantage over Susan Collins with 47.5% in her column to Susan Collins is 44.8%. And moving on to the final look at data, looking at the 2014 midterms where Susan Collins won re-election to another term over Shenna Bellows, the Democrat, with 68.46% of the vote to Shenna Bellows is 31.5%. A margin of 223,000 votes. Susan Collins won re-election with ease. She has won in basically every election she has taken part in the state of Maine by a significant margin of victory due to her popularity among more moderate Democrats and among the Republican Party, as well as more moderate independents in the state of Maine. But without further ado, the polls have now closed, so let's get right into the prediction. With 32% of the vote in, Sara Gideon has taken the lead, 11,982. That is the margin of lead over Susan Collins at this point in time. 50.01% over Susan Collins, who holds 44.98%. This is a promising sign for the Sara Gideon campaign with 32% of the vote now in. We expect more and more votes to start coming in a lot quicker here as the hours tick on. 59% of the vote is now in the state of Maine, and Sara Gideon holds a 15,000 vote edge. She has extended her voter lead, however, not a percentage lead. That has shrunk to just 49.29% over Susan Collins is 46.41%. It is starting to narrow here. Keep in mind that Maine has ranked choice voting, so if neither candidate holds over 50% of the vote by the time all of the vote is counted, we will have to proceed to a new round of balloting based on the second and third choice votes of certain voters across the state of Maine, and that could have a significant impact on this race, especially if it continues to tighten here and neither candidate receives over 50% of the vote. 91% of the vote is in, and take a look at how close it has become. Just 5,648 votes is the margin of lead, with Sara Gideon holding 48.77% to Susan Collins is 47.93%. In all likelihood, this race will come down to ranked choice voting, which will be really interesting to see what happens here. Sara Gideon is the projected winner in the state of Maine in its Senate race. This is a Democratic pickup over Susan Collins, the incumbent, who has lost re-election for the first time in a very, very long time. A big Democratic pickup here for Sara Gideon and the Democratic Party, who through ranked choice voting has won with just 50.78% of the vote to Susan Collins is 49.22%, winning just 7,884 more votes than Susan Collins did in the state of Maine. Now looking at the largest 8 counties in the state of Maine and the county map as a whole. In Cumberland County, in York County, in Kennebec County, in Androscoggin County, and in Hancock County, that is where Sara Gideon was able to win, while Susan Collins won in 3 of the 8 largest counties, in Penobscot County, Aroostook County, and Oxford County. Now that is all for today's video in the state of Maine in its Senate race. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Also check out other Senate race predictions on the channel, as well as state-by-state predictions for the presidential election and election maps, forecasts, and analysis all across the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and tune in next time.